What's the scariest thing that you have experienced? My brother has a copy of a family picture because it makes my stomach turn every time I see it. At first it looks like a normal birthday pic. Grandma sitting down in the middle with a cake in front of her, kids and grandkids on either side and behind her. Everyone is smiling. But if you look at my uncle, his smile isn't quite right, neither is his body language. The pic was taken seconds before he collapsed from a stroke. The side of his face is drooping, and his arms are at his side when everyone else has their arms around each other. Easily the scariest event up to that point in my 11-year-old life. He's fine now, just celebrated his 65th birthday. My first memory was the loudest sound you can imagine, then the sound of falling glass. I remember having to wear a mask and getting yelled at for playing in the warm snow while my mom went into full-blown F1 panic mode. All the windows on one side of the house were gone. May 18th, 1980, Mount St. Helens eruption. When I was a kid no older than 11, me and my family were on a road trip. My mother had started the day with headaches, but she was fine by the time we had left. Around half an hour and the headaches returned, and they were much worse. It got so bad she had to stop driving and go to the back seat with me. A few minutes later she started talking nonsense and squirming. This is when panic set in. She could not speak words. In absolute terror we drove to the nearest while my struggling mom held my hands. In that moment I was certain my mom was going to die right next to me. However, we got to the hospital and they were able to help her and she survived. Turns out she had a stroke. Proof, medical records. I was in a car accident with my mill. We hit the back of a loaded log truck. It was weirdly similar to how traumatic events are seen in movies and shit. I remember it like everything was in slow motion without sound. Just before the actual impact I had the weirdest urge/thought that I needed to plant my leg so my phone would be okay in order to call my, at the time, boyfriend. I didn't think I was going to die or about anything other than I need that phone to call my boyfriend. I assume I was knocked out for a bit because the next thing I remember is suddenly being conscious again, not like waking up but just being aware again. There were logs in between me, the passenger, and my mill driver. I could only see her chin and hear what sounded like snoring. I was terrified that she would die, but it was a muted terror, like I knew that's how I felt, but it was behind a wall. It was on the border of disassociation, but not quite there. I couldn't open the door, so I climbed out the window and yelled to call 911. The truck driver had already put out road flares and called. I called my boyfriend to tell him what happened. My memory gets quite choppy from there. I remember a very kind nurse who had been driving home from work staying with me on the side of the road while waiting for emergency services to get there. I remember paramedics or firefighters, not sure which, showing up and starting to cut through the metal of my mill's truck to get her out. I told them that the truck had a back door they could open. I guess I just wanted to be helpful. The paramedic/firefighter thanked me. The wonderful nurse who stayed with me convinced me to go in an ambulance because I didn't know what to do since I wasn't actually hurt. I was extremely calm until the ambulance started moving, but the paramedic was really great at distracting me to keep me calm. He noticed my Doctor Who ringtone, so he started to talk to me about the show. It was probably the weirdest mental state I have ever experienced. I remember the paramedic trying to get in forth in my left arm, but that arm's vein is weird and it hurt a lot. I asked if he could put it in the right one because it has a really great vein. I've had a lot of blood draws in the past. He said yeah, but seemed unsure of how because that side was against the wall. So helpful, in pain me just yelled, just get on top of me and do it. Remembering that now always cracks me up. My mill was taken to the hospital by helicopter. She was in the ICU for quite some time but survived. She has some brain damage, but it's mostly memory based and getting better every day. She had also lost the ability to taste/smell, but has recently said it's about 70% back. She is quite possibly the nicest and most optimistic person I've ever had the pleasure of knowing. She saved my life by turning the wheel. I had some scratches and body aches, but that's all. I will forever be grateful for her existence, especially her continued existence. I had a bad fear of driving before the accident, and I still have it now. I'm 25 and I've never had a driver's license, but I'm working on it. Sorry for the long rambling and unnecessary details. I guess I still haven't gotten over it, and it helps to talk about it. It's been around 6 or 7 years, so I feel like I should be over it, but I guess I'm not there yet. A little over a year ago, someone soaked my front and back door in gasoline and tried to light it. The proof: I can probably get a copy of the report from the sheriff's office. As a male teacher, being asked to come to the district office for a mystery meeting and being shown the anonymous emails laying out very false and very serious accusations against me. I have a copy of the email and several letters putting me on administrative leave and forbidding all contact with students pending an investigation. A month later, the investigation found the accusations unsubstantiated and I still have my job, etc. But that month probably took 10 years off my life. I used to live on a farm out in Australia and my older brother had some night vision goggles. Like serious things, they worked super well, and some nights I would put them on since they looked goofy, and I remembered I looked out and saw the figure of someone about 100 yards away. Sent shivers down my spine, and the next day I found footprints. Still scares me to this day. At the time I worked armed patrol security for a lot of Section 8 communities. There's a big market in it, because often private sector can respond faster and what I've seen more willing to actually secure the area. Often in Section 8 you'll have entire buildings, in this case 4-story apartment, that are vacant, because gangs have totally ran the area out. Sometimes they are boarded up, most of the times it's not enough. It's common to clear these buildings, ensure no vagrants or otherwise illegal activity. It's really late at night, and as I drive to the rear of the building I see one of the boards is ajar. So I figure, hey, why not? I'm bored. I make my way inside. I stumble upon something pretty neat. In one unit there's a big hole in the drywall connecting it to the adjacent unit. So I head on through and find an entire tunnel system connecting most units. I'm getting drywall all over myself, taking pics as I go, and honestly was having some fun with it. Then finally I get to the end and find what seems to be an execution site. Big pool of dried blood, couple of 40 shell casings about, and immediately realize I'm deep within labyrinth with no backup and my radio has no signal. We were tied in directly to the city's dispatch. Snap some pics, and then I hear a series of footsteps in the unit above me. Nope the fuck out to there real quick, and just made a report about it. Never did find out the true story of what happened there. I've posted this before, definitely more creepy than scary though. A couple of years ago I rented an apartment that was in a massive old architecture style building. No idea how old it was. I remember when I did the showing they showed me a door that had an elaborate staircase that went straight up to the ceiling and explained that it went to the attic, which was sealed up. When I was finally moving out, curiosity got the best of me and I pushed on the panel at the top of the stairs until it popped open and hoisted myself up there. It was completely dark and the floor was covered in at least an inch of dust, and I found that it was an entire extra floor to my unit. There was some old rotting furniture and magazines littered throughout the rooms. I eventually found a small hole in one of the walls that went into the sealed off upstairs of the unit next to mine and decided to go through that one too. I found a smaller hole at the back end of that area that led to the next one. I eventually made my way through about 5 or 6 of these sealed off spaces that had no entrances save these small holes in drywall. The farther I went in, the older the furniture I found. Fridges from the 50s or earlier, old dishware, and so much dust over everything. The last unit was the most interesting, hand-painted scenes on the walls and holes to the attic letting sunlight stream in. I took small videos, but they are all on Snapchat, so they are hard to post. I must have been up there for hours just exploring alone in the dark. I was pretty lucky to have the only room with access up there. I took snippets of video on Snapchat, wish I would have taken more pictures. I had brain surgery to remove a benign tumor, and everything that happened the night before leaving up to my surgery I just didn't think I would wake up from it. Well, my mom was the one that was scared. I didn't know what was going on. When I was 5 years old, I got separated from my mom at the beach in the Dominican Republic. I tried going back to our resort alone. There were rescue boats on the water looking for me, since my mother thought I had drowned. Luckily, a nice French woman found me and brought me to my mom on the beach. Well, this was back in late 2018. I woke up early one morning, getting ready for college. I remember getting ready, going into my garage, and starting my car. Hell, I remember backing out of the garage and making sure the door got closed. My next recollection is a college classmate asking me why I always drink so much drive. Pepper. So, I drove over 40 miles at 55 miles per hour. Not only that, but I got out at one of probably 3 places and went into a store and bought a drink. I do not remember this at all. I nearly lost my eye once. I was around 17 at the time, and it was just after Canada Day celebration, and I had discovered what I thought was a smoke bomb in a park nearby my house. So obviously, being 17 and a bit rebellious, I brought it home and decided I was gonna set it off in my backyard. I grabbed a BBQ lighter, some scissors, and a bunch of newspaper to fashion into a wick. Once I crafted a shoddy excuse for a wick and put it on what I thought was a smoke bomb, I processed to light it. It took a few tries, but then all of a sudden I couldn't see or hear anything. Whatever it was I lit had detonated so largely I got knocked back a good foot or 2. When my sight and hearing started to return, I had realized I was screaming. Disoriented, I made my way to the bathroom and saw nothing but blood streaming from my eye. Thinking I had just blown up my eye, I screamed more. My mom got me to the hospital and I ended up just fine. Had to do regular visits to be sure nothing got lodged in there. I ended up in a local newspaper for this though, and I still have the clipping today. Possibly a little tame to what you're looking for. When I was around 10, my family went to the Cayman Islands. I went snorkeling in the ocean with my mom and stepdad and saw a barracuda swimming toward me. I panicked and swam toward my stepdad. He didn't believe me and ditched. I went to my mom. She started helping me swim to shore, and then she saw him. She wanted to take a picture with her underwater camera. She went to take a picture and he smiled for the camera. I still have that photo somewhere. I was hospitalized back in March for COVID-19. Back when people were being told not to go to the hospital in order to avoid overwhelming the system. I honestly thought I was going to die that week. There was a lot of homeless people where I used to live, as I lived in a town center. People with a lot of mental health related problems, and I felt sorry for them. I was on crutches, long term, and you could pretty much hear me walking everywhere. I was taking a shortcut through one of the alleyways, came across one of them, and had the fright of my life. It was dark at the time, dusk. He apologized. After that, he started to follow me everywhere. My comings and goings were never set. I had flexi time at work, so would come and go at all hours. It was even more erratic at weekends. I would set out, and within half a street he would be behind me. Constantly. Went on for months and I actually started to get very frightened. I think he hung around near where I lived. He would hear my crutches and set off behind me. It carried on until I moved. I went scuba diving to feed sharks. During the feeding, my equipment broke, air tube disconnected from mouthpiece. At 30 feet underwater, I can't forget the feeling of water forcing itself down my throat. I looked up at the surface through the sharks and knew I'd never make it. Master diver helped me get on back up air and we continued the dive. Panic didn't hit until on shore. That was my first and last dive. Proof is on my underwater camera. You hear me start to drown, then see the master diver get me on back up. You can distinctly hear when I start breathing again. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to consider the idea to maybe think about potentially subscribing. Peace.